last half hour, Buckingham Palace has announced that the funeral of Diana, Princess of Wales, will be held in Westminster Abbey on Saturday. Her body, which is at St James's Palace at the moment, will not lie in state. She'll be buried at the Spencer family home at Althorp. We'll straight now to our correspondent James Mates, who's at Buckingham Palace now. James, what are the details from the palace?
Well, as you say, just a few minutes ago the palace gave this statement. The funeral will be on Saturday, the funeral will be at Althorp. What the palace won't do is solve the mystery of what exactly the definition of this funeral will be. Now, according to the protocol of these things, there are three types of royal funeral that she could be accorded. One is a state funeral, which is normally reserved for the sovereign themselves, although occasionally other exceptional individuals, who you may remember Winston Churchill was given this honour, can also be accorded a state funeral. The second is a ceremonial royal funeral. Now, again, according to the protocol, that normally goes to the sovereign's consort and to the heir to the throne. There is then also a third category called a private royal funeral, which is accorded to all other members of the royal family. Now, the palace, as I say, won't say what exactly Saturday's funeral is going to be. One spokesman there said this morning that the status is irrelevant. He said this is a unique funeral for a unique person. And the fact that it's being held in Westminster Abbey, do you think this means it will amount to the great significant public occasion that Tony Blair was talking about? Yes, I think it will. And not only will it be at Westminster Abbey, but the Princess's coffin will be carried in procession from the Chapel Royal to the Abbey for the funeral, which will obviously be a great opportunity for people, the ordinary people in London, to pay their last respects. It's also been announced that flags will be flown at half-mast from today until the day of the funeral. While this may not turn out to be a state occasion, it will certainly be a major national occasion. James Mates, Buckingham Palace, thank you very much. Well, huge queues have been forming all morning at St James's Palace, where the Princess's body is lying at rest in the Chapel Royal. People are waiting to sign a book of condolence, open to allow them to write their own tributes to the Princess.
St James's Palace, where Diana, Princess of Wales, rested last night. The new day, breaking reluctantly, brought the harsh reality that, after all, yesterday did happen, and with it now the ordeal of accepting the painful truth. The morning newspapers mirrored the sentiments of the people, for many mere words so inadequate to express their deep feelings of loss and grief. Outside Buckingham Palace, the pavement has become a garden of remembrance, floral tributes for the people's princess, flowers and notes of sympathy from all over the world. To a lost British treasure, said one. And at Kensington Palace there were more tributes, and in the park there was silence. Across the country, the shock of the last 24 hours is undiminished.
I was horrified, really. I was too tragic. It just affected me throughout the whole day. I was too depressed to go out, too depressed to do anything, really.
I just think she was a wonderful girl, and I mean everything she's done for charity, there's never going to be anybody to replace her, never.
Yeah, me and my wife had a very bad day yesterday. We were very upset.
On Saturday, Diana, Princess of Wales, will be going home for the last time. She'll be buried at the Spencer family home at Althorp in Northamptonshire after a service at Westminster Abbey. There were queues outside St James's Palace this morning when a book of condolence was opened for the public to sign. Colin Baker, ITN.
Police in Paris have been granted permission to hold 7 photographers who were arrested after the accident for a second day. Officers are examining 20 rolls of film which it's thought could shed some light on what happened. Our foreign news correspondent Paul Davis is in the French capital.
As Paris went back to work after the weekend that stunned the world, a Union flag and bunches of flowers marked the site where a high-speed chase ended in the death of Diana, Princess of Wales, her friend Dodi Fayed and her driver. Official ceremonies of remembrance will take place in Britain, but at the hospital where the princess died, ordinary people have been paying respects as best they can, with flowers and simple messages. The French press, like the British, are asking the question, was the princess hounded to her death? 7 photographers detained near the scene of the fatal crash are still being held, the usual 24 hours of questioning extended to 48. The men seen here soon after they were taken into custody are all French nationals, with the exception of one photographer from Macedonia. Later today, they should know whether they will face criminal charges. Mohamed Al Fayed's lawyer in Paris, Bernard Dartevel, says he expects the seven will be charged with criminal manslaughter. He told me that he'd received instructions from Mr. Al Fayed to first wait for the police to bring charges. If that did not happen, Mr. Fayed would take out a civil action on behalf of his son, the princess, and the driver who died.
The way in which the princess and Dodi Fayed died has prompted fresh calls for tougher privacy laws. Her brother, Earl Spencer, has already accused newspaper editors of having blood on their hands over his sister's death. Our Home Affairs editor, Jennifer Nadel, reports.
The focus was firmly on those who pursued the princess today, with demands growing for action to curb invasions of privacy by the media. The princess's close friend, Rosa Monckton, told ITN last night of her concern for Prince William and Prince Harry.
I think that it's going to be very difficult for both of those boys now. They saw how their mother has been hounded by the press, and I have to say, I've been a friend of hers for some time, but until we went to Greece, I had no idea quite how bad it was. That's all she wanted, a bit of peace.
The government has so far tried to avoid giving a rushed response to a complex problem.
I'm slightly surprised that immediately the questions are being asked of the politicians. In the first instance, the questions have to be asked of the press and of the editors.
With pictures of the fatal crash already reportedly being offered for sale, one former Heritage Secretary said the world's press baron should disown the paparazzi.
Her death has got to be a turning point in the activities of photographers who've nothing to do with advancing the legitimate interests of the media, who behave appallingly and who prey on celebrities for money.
The willingness of the press and broadcasters to change will now be crucial in determining whether the current system of self-regulation will be allowed to continue. Jennifer Nadel, ITN.
Away from the preparations for Princess Diana's funeral, the thoughts of many people are with the two young princes, William and Harry. They're still at Balmoral with Prince Charles and other members of the royal family. Our reporter David Rose is there.
Prince Charles returned here just before 10 last night. He must have been exhausted after yesterday's strains, but he'd clearly decided that he should be with his sons as soon as possible. So now the entire royal family is behind me in Balmoral Castle. There's no sign of yesterday's big police and special branch presence, so I think any imminent departure is unlikely. Balmoral is perhaps the ideal place for the two young princes to find the time and space to grieve for their mother. It is by far the most remote and private of the royal residences. I gather, incidentally, the plan was for Prince William and Prince Harry to have flown to London today to meet their mother on her return from Paris. Instead, it seems that the Queen and Prince Charles have decided this Scottish estate is the perfect place, if there can be such a perfect place, for the two princes to spend some of those long days before their mother's funeral.
Well, a world away from the huge ceremony expected at the princess's funeral, Dodi Fayed, who died in the accident with her, was buried quietly last night.
Only hours after the tragedy, in line with his family's wishes, Dodi Al Fayed was buried in Britain. The funeral cortege left the London Central Mosque last night in Regent's Park